What do you think of the state of modern Britain, Peter?
God, how long have you got? I mean,
About 20 minutes
yeah, I
in
mean,
total.
from what point of view? I suppose, just to allude to something we were just talking about before we came on air, the general decline in, you know, our surroundings has suddenly become noticeable.
Yeah. Sorry, John, we're getting an echo. Can we stop that, please?
Yeah. And I've sort of found this because I've been going around the country, different places, and you can't, it's sort of palpable. Fewer people about, and also just dirty streets, tattiness generally, a sense of things not working. I mean, all of this, nothing news, I'm sure, anyone who's listening. But I think that, when you look uh, the- at all of these sorts of things, even the way that people's demeanor, even, then that seems to have actually struck me almost in the past year, I would say. It's sudden like that. And I no longer. I've lived in London all my life, but I moved out to Windsor a year and a half ago. And people think that Windsor's this very twee place and everything. It's not twee at all, actually. But even in you know uh, places like Windsor, there are signs of empty shops. We things that basically people have got used to in their own suburban
Yeah.
town centres. It's too easy to say it's just about the pandemic.
No.
I think there's been a general retreat for these very reasons from the public space. I see it in myself. I can feel it in myself.
There's been a general sort of hollowing out of life.
Yes, exactly, and a sort of exhaustion. I would say cultural exhaustion. That's so. What does that actually mean? I know what I mean by that. I'm sure you do, but it's a kind of feeling that there's no dynamic driving society. That and what we've had in the past 3 or 4 years, I would say, is a sense in which people can't even take refuge in the past.
Yeah.
They can't. Nostalgia is probably a banned thing.
Everything is under attack at the moment.
Yes. So
it's hard to identify where the
yes.
attacks are really coming from.
Yes. I mean, it's a kind of, from the moment you wake up in the morning, if you're still stupid enough to listen to the Today program, right the way through, it is one long litany of basically why you are essentially bad, why you are at fault. This affects certain sections of our society more, like say men or whatever. And that is never ending. It's incessant, and it will have an effect on the way people. That's why one of the reasons I think they sort of stop having children. I don't just think it is about money and the expense of it. I mean, if you don't feel that there's actually anything in the future, it's kind of odd subconscious thing. Why would you do something which was about the future?
Why can't we feel optimistic about our own futures? It's very hard to explain why the decline is happening. And no politicians, no pundits on TV, no one ever tries to give you an explanation. I talk to taxi drivers quite a lot, because I think taxi drivers are an interesting barometer of the country.
Yeah.
At some point, everyone has to get a taxi, right?
Yeah.
And the taxi drivers I speak to are always just like, yeah, this country's going down. And I ask them, well, do you ever see anyone trying to explain? They're like, no. It's just it's inevitable.
Well, no, but the reason I think for that is that we're not meant to think that it is going down. We're meant to be actually, living in some kind of nirvana.
Yeah.
And it's essentially, therefore, you have to sort of, there's a sort of thing now called vision crime, I think, that you sort of look at something and say, that's not right. But actually, everything is telling you that this is absolutely fine and that, in fact, it's better than ever.
Well, that's very much what the Conservatives are trying to pretend, isn't it? I mean, I just remember Liz Truss saying, I think Britain's best days are ahead of it. I think they're gone. But one of the things that I think is something that will help with this is actually going back to understanding what made us good. And I think that virtue ethics made us good, which is why, if you want to support us, go over to the website and go and check out Stelios and I's examination of Aristotle's Nicomachean Ethics, which I think are just the root of all of the virtues that Britain has had, basically. Doing the right things for the right reasons, for the right amount of time, with the right people. These are all things that are important, and it is not just in one realm of life. This is a thing you need to think about for your whole life. And it's one of those things that just you would never get this kind of conversation in an educational situation. Like in schools, in academia, you wouldn't hear about it on TV. And yet this, honestly, the reason my life is way better now is because I decided to essentially just do what Aristotle recommended.
Right.
Just try and be a good person in these ways. And it really worked for me. And so I totally recommend it for other people.
When you say works for you, Carl, I mean, do you mean it changes your general attitude to things?
Yeah. Primarily to understand that you should do all of the things you like doing, but not too much or too little, I think is a good way of actually reframing your entire life, because too many life plans are in some way really restrictive, right? Oh, you should never eat this, you should never do that. And it's like, no, you should. There's a time and a place for all of these things, but you should do everything essentially in moderation. And this is an old phrase that the British have used for many years because it's true. You shouldn't be denying yourself the pleasures of life, but also you shouldn't be doing it all the time.
Yeah.
There's go out once a month with your friends and go drinking. That's totally fine. In fact, it's part of the good life to have all of these things. And actually, I think that one of the things that Zoomers don't have these days is access to the good life, because they don't have friends. They don't have friendship circles in the way that when we were young, we absolutely did, because you couldn't just spend all your time on the internet. You didn't have that option. If you wanted to have fun with other people, you had to go out, and that was important. But anyway, so that's what I think is the solution to our current woes. But let's have a look at our current woes. So there's a recent poll by Ipsos Mori, I believe it was, where they asked people, well, do you think Britain's getting better or worse? And 76% thought Britain is a worse place to live, compared to 49% in June 2010, which is when the austerity years began, and 71% in May 2008 as the financial crisis hit. This is reflected in people's opinions on politics, obviously. Nobody really approves of any of our politicians, although Keir Starmer is the most approved of because he hasn't become the Prime Minister and screwed everything up yet. But even then, only 36% of people see Keir Starmer as the most capable man to be the Prime Minister. So 2/3 of the country are like, no. I mean, it's 3/4 of the country that say no to Sunak.
I mean, actually, how much notice do you even take of Westminster politics? I mean, I take very little. I mean, I was asked the other day to go on something, and just simply, what do you think of Rishi Sunak? Do you think? And I sort of thought, I don't care. I don't care.
Think of Rishi Sunak. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But don't.